computerized information system. Behavioral strategies improve the use of human resources, such as empowering people at lower levels of the organization to make decisions without seeking upper level approval. Okay, as we can see, there are a few types of intervention, which is individual, team, intergroup, and total organizational system. In which is there are intervention technique include activities focusing on intervention, okay, which is that use behavioral, structural, and technological strategy. Certain intervention may fit into several or all categories. Okay, the aspect of the organization that is being changed and the problem condition will determine the type of intervention that is selected. Okay, in behavioral individual, we have a career planning, goal setting and stress management, which is under structural there are job enrichment and stress management. Also for technological is job design. Basically under technological, the job design is preparing what is the process to deliver the job. Okay, later maybe we can have some discussion in terms of this type of intervention, which is to get a more clearer about what is the action plan and strategies under this stage. Okay, next. Okay, decent intervention, it must be implemented and applied to transform individuals, group, team, and structural aspect. And well-planned intervention may improve the employee skill, knowledge, and the abilities which meet the organizational or company competency. Okay, next I continue. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So silent. Okay, under the stage 5, we have self-renewal, monitor, and stabilize, which is under self-renewal, process of building innovation and adaptation. As a part of the process of adapting to a new phase of changing, people need their own phase and sweet time to be blend and adapt a new norm, which is like right now in our new situation, which is we have to learn to adapt for a new norm after the COVID. And next is monitor, assessing the strategies, get feedback, and communicate the result. By monitoring as part of the assessing method, by getting feedback from time to time to know whether the situation after the transformation is after the transformation process as always convey the result. Okay. Next is stabilize, which is continuing to function satisfactorily and preventing from becoming too static, which is under stabilize, we always looking for the opportunities to change or improvement in order to stay relevant and leading for innovation. Okay, the last stage is continuous improvement. Okay, basically they have 5 continuous improvement, which is people closest to the work know the issues and opportunity. Of course, the internal staff or maybe the person in charge of the process, definitely the right people to seek for any opportunity after facing any issues or need to a better improvement in terms of the contribution to the organization. The next is a journey of relentlessly seeking perfection. By this journey is always looking for possible changes in order to achieve better improvement and results. And next, everything can be viewed as a process, which is any change of or transformation need time to adapt to a new thing. So this shows as a part of the process. Next, performance is judged by the customer. In whatever changes that we make is to achieve customer satisfaction, either the customer being external or internal, they determine the productivity and the profit to the organization. Last but not least, to manage performance, you have to measure it. Definitely to call it as a performance, definitely there must a way and tools to define whether it's success or not. So I think that's all for me. Maybe we can have some discussion after this.
Okay, are you done with the presentation?
Yes.
Good. Any questions or comments, opinions? Good presentation. I think we covered the whole process. And the group has also just sent the slides onto our WhatsApp group. Any thoughts? Noman, you want to start?
Yes, Prof. Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Yes.
Very good morning, our teammates and classmates, and Dr. Hisham also.
Yes, Dr. Hisham is also here. As always, thank you, Hisham.
Okay, I would like to recap the stage 1, anticipate need for change, that how the organization is to have blended the external factors and internal factors together to achieve the perception of the management itself. Yes, stage 1. Because we got two factors, external and internal. And then these two factors blended together to have the perception of management. But as we know, in the organization itself, it's not everybody understand what is external and internal.
Any thoughts from the group?
Hi, Prof.
Yes.
Thank you, my friend. I think both internal factors and external factors is not necessarily blended together to make the change success, because I think maybe some part of external factors or some part of internal factors is not suitable for certain organization. Maybe they can suit the changes according to the organizational culture. Other than that, maybe Prof can add something.
Yes, the anticipation for need for change. I think that rests primarily on top management. Remember, and top management itself is responsible for all OD processes, right? Usually, organizations have also inbuilt or embedded ways or means for them to actually anticipate changes. For example, they may do environmental scans, looking into the market, looking into the social background, all the environmental and the environment to see whether there are any changes. Right. Take for example, COVID-19. This is something that is much unanticipated. I think a lot,
Biarlah.
yes, I think a lot of organizations are not prepared for the MCO, and you
Ya
see a
bang.
lot of organizations actually suffering throughout at least throughout the MCOs.
Hello.
They are not being able to produce, and as such,
Okay.
most have problem into running their running capital. Thus, they cannot pay workers, and as such, it's a good thing. Probably the stimulus package is there, but still, the stimulus package will not be able to cover everything, right? So these are examples of unanticipated. Although you may hear that, for example, Bill Gates and some other people may have already been looking into a possible pandemic and a possible pandemic impact on organization. So there are organizations that have made some preparations for such, but I think overall, not many, if there are at all, organizations who are totally prepared for such a virulent pandemic such as the COVID-2. Other than that, for example, economic downturn, right? Petronas, to some extent, may have anticipated the fall in the prices of of oil, but again, I don't think they expect oil to fall this much. They may have made some provisions, right, for a certain percentage drop in the price of oil, but to have oil at negative future prices is something that not many people saw, right? Again, these are things that although organizations may prepare for unanticipated for anticipated change, but they are not totally prepared for COVID-19. Does that make it easier to understand anticipated changes in view of the environment? Also, right, from the internal environment, for
Yes, Prof.
example,
It's good because
yes, in the internal environment, for example, the loss of workers, brain drain, for example, talent management is put into place, right? So talent management is in fact one of the processes or one of the activities, interventions that organizations put into place to address issues of people leaving the organization, right? So looking into competitors and how competitors may take away employees, that could be the preparation, having organizations prepare for changes in having programs for talent management and talent retention, for example. Hisham, you have any thoughts on this?
Salam sejahtera. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dengar, Din?
Yes, yes.
Can you hear me?
Loud
Clear?
and clear.
All right. Thank you for class. Before, can I just comment on the cycle itself? Yeah. If you look in terms of the process cycle, you have stage 1 to stage 6, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. But in actual OD process, yeah, before we go for the stage 1 process, we have what we call some administrative work that has to be done. The first thing is that, of course, when we talk about these administrative pages, this is something at the top management, they discuss it in the meeting, for example. We have brainstorming sessions, we have strategic retreats, for example. They're looking at performance, what are we performing. These are the things that we anticipate during discussions, during intellectual discourses, and so on. But if you were to look at the OD process itself, then prior to this, we have to set up what I call the steering committee. We come up with steering committee who will be leading this particular OD process. Yeah. So what the steering committee comprises of course, we look at the OD structure, the responsibility of the different individuals in that steering committee. Then what the committee will do is that we develop policies, we come up with resources and budget, you know, and prior to the engagement of this one, prior to embarking with the OD process, normally we have what we call appreciation seminar for the top management. Appreciation seminar, you have a day session, for example. It is just to clarify to the top management that we are embarking a certain projects. It will be led by a certain committee, and this will be the projects that will be taking that will take off. Of course, then we have what called the operations team. For example, in the case of ICC, we have the circles. In the case of 5S, we have the 5S teams. In the case of Petronas, for example, they have what they call QIT teams, quality improvement teams, or quality action teams, or certain places we call it PIP teams, productivity improvement programs. So this is these are the teams that will be handling. They will identify all the problem, they will collect data, they will do implementation, they will do monitoring, and they also do the evaluation part of it. They are the one also that will be developing the client relationship, in the event that the management decide to bring in an external consultant to be part of that. So then the consultant will be the advisory, will play the advisory role or play the consulting role. They work together with the project teams, the project teams, and from there they work together. But sometimes it is self-empowered teams. They did not use any external consultants. They will diagnose the problem. They will collect data on the problem. They will look at what causes the problem. They will look at alternatives to the problem. They will do trial runs and on, and then they do target setting until they actually run the pilot projects. So I believe one of the things that I want to share here, the importance of what we call the steering committee in steering this particular OD process. And it's also, it has also to be, there must be a policy to be mandated simply because this will be the source of power for us to embark on the OD process. Among other things that will be included in OD, for example, in the case of Petronas, 95% of the performance management will come from the KPI and the behaviors evaluation. But 5% of the OD, 5% of the score will come from the OD or what called the small groups activities. So it means to say, if you are doing the OD, it is part and parcel of the job, and it must contribute to the performance management system for that particular year. I believe Lembaga Hasil also does that. That is, they have to include certain amount of percentage so that whatever we do, it is voluntary in nature, but it contributes to the performance of the department and the performance of that particular individual. So these are the things that I say prior to the OD process is setting up the steering committee, and from there we develop the policies, resources being allocated, by scope of the steering committee being spelled out, and of course then we talk about registration of the teams itself, and the management have to be consent. So what is what we have in for example in stage 4, of course, at all stages during that intervention process or the OD process, we have what we call the weekly or the monthly meeting. Normally, it's a weekly meeting, 1 hour per week for us to do reporting, for us to progress our reports to the members of the floor. And also, it is very important that in order to sustain the OD, there must be a mechanism of meetings and so on. So my thoughts on that, Dr. Gideon.
Good, thank you. And I think a lot of organizations have also developed, have also instituted change management units within the organization. And I think if you look at, for example, Telekom Malaysia, if you look at Bank Negara Malaysia, they all have these units to look into possible requirements for change at the organization, apart from those that are work out from the steering committee, which usually comprise of top management. Okay.
Okay, Dr. Sham, I would like to have your overview and during your time in MPC, why government related agencies, I mean, but actually a government office rarely using this mechanism to have a new version or it means change their development, or what I call to reorg in this process compared to the corporate or the GLC.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Yeah. When we talk about reorg, that will be structural intervention. Yeah. Reorg normally comes, normally when we see there is a problem with the current setup, we do reorg. Or when it comes, sometimes it can also very political in nature. Very political, it means to say that when there's new ministers that comes in, they want new directions, they want new strategic teams and so on. They want to make sure, or sometimes this reorg is being mandated by the parliament. Yeah, so you see that we don't do reorg because reorg is simply costly. Some people will lose seniority. We have people will not be placed at the right position, for example. You know, the job scopes may differ. But NPC, for example, my experience, they have done a lot of reorg simply mandated by the parliament. Initially, the setting up of NPC were to help small businesses. Then there was a time. Then the focus was to look at productivity initiatives. So the strategic teams differs, you know. Then they come up with a lot of other initiatives with they call benchmarking processes. Now their focuses on regulatory, something to do with good regulatory processes. And there are the structure of the organization will be to support that national policy on GRP itself. So that's why we see that one, we do reorg simply one because we see there is low productivity in the organization delivery system. Two, because mandated by the politics simply because we have a new minister that comes in, or the top structure is new KPs, new TKSU, things like that, or sometimes it's been mandated by the parliament. Yeah, that's why you do not see, but that's why you see sometimes, yeah, the mergings of the KPT, things like that. We see KDN being split at one time, you know. So at certain kementerian ada, yeah. We also see that the focus of Kementerian Belia will be different, for example, yeah. The markers of MEDEC, for example, with the new minister that comes in, again, comes with the new direction. Again, it's not easy for us to reorg. We have to look in total from the pelaksana until the top management. Yeah, and it will take some time. Normally, it have to be anything that we want to structure. In our case, of the public sector, we have to present it to JPA first. The public service department will have to improve because when we restructure, normally it comes with post job grades, yeah, creation of jobs and so on, and it comes with money. With the current situation of economic crisis, we will not be able to have that. Yeah, so that's why we see in my case at one time we go with a certain we call VSS, yeah, ada juga VSS, dia kata jawatan itu dijumutkan. You look at certain, they have to consolidate simply because the functions is no longer relevant, or because we are basically because the functions is not relevant, or we are we reorg simply because we have duplication of functions. Yeah, in my experience, NPC were doing tourism at the same time we have the Ministry of Tourism. So at the time we have Datuk Sabro Cik says it is a duplication of job functions. So we have to reorg, and certain parts of it must be moved to under the ministry. So there must be a reason. That's why the process of diagnosis and the rationale for the restructuring has to be tabled out to JPA. And I believe JPA ada unit we call Organizational Development Unit that will vet through whether it is feasible, and we will have to look at impact analysis of that restructuring. Yeah, Mr. Rahman, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
And also, you must take into account that most organizations also have planning for change. For example, the government services have Hala Tuju Baru or Hala Tuju meetings, right? Looking for new directions, that they look into the whole organizations on what they need to do for the future and what the implications to staffing needs and so on. Okay?
Thank you, Prof.
We will be moving into organization life cycle, and maybe then we'll have a more comprehensive look into why there is a need for change.
For your information, class, yeah, tomorrow, Tomorrow there is a forum on Kerajaan Pemangkin Transformasi Penyampaian Perkhidmatan Sektor Awam. Ya. I will share the link with the class to be hosted by SUK Pahang and DAG of NPC, moderated by one of the lecturers from UMP. Ya. So again, we look at with what Dr. Gideon says with the current crisis, we are looking at things. Yeah. So now this is this forum. I believe tomorrow at 2:30. Yeah. I will share with the link. Yeah. Kerajaan Pemangkin Transformasi Penyampaian Sektor Awam. Yeah. So I will share. So that's why this is the new normal. We look at transformation. Yeah. Okay. That is one part that goes along with structural interventions nanti. And plus technological. So we have to look at three things. Behaviorals will be involved, structural intervention will be involved. At the same time, will be technological interventions that will be involved because of the eating. Yeah. Right, Norman? Just to add up.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor.
Good. Any other things that we need to attend to? Or we could
Dr. Hisham,
organization life cycle.
are you familiar with the business process re-engineering initiated by Pemuda before? Is it any
BPR,
related to the OD process?
Yeah. I am not very familiar, but I know it's mereka yasa lah. Business process engineering, we have to simplify things backwards. Kan? Basically, it is a process of lean management, whereby dalam business process engineering, we are looking at what is the weightage. Ya, kita tengok what are the processes that are not, what are the processes that will burden the administrative process. Nowadays, MPC produces what we call another initiative that is MyCure. Have you heard of MyCure? MyCure, that is an initiative under the GRP, Good Practices. If you look, I will share later what is MyCure. Is cutting unnecessary red tapes. It has been done throughout Malaysia at ministerial levels and also at state levels. It is part because we also employ by using DMAC. Yeah. DMAC is under the Six Sigma punya model, and it is something to do reverse engineering because in a combination of lean management and also regulatory burdens. So BPR is something that along that line, minimization of waste, optimization of processes, cutting red tapes, and so on. That is one part of BPR lah. Another version, the Malaysian version is MyCure. Sama juga macam kita buat value stream mapping dalam lean management. So in integration of this. But at the end of the day, kita look at one, we have to reduce waiting time. We have to be able to reduce bureaucracy. We have to be able to reduce waste, motion economic waste or manpower waste. So that is the intention of BPR. We are looking at lean processes based. We have to do the as-is mapping. As-is mapping ialah the current processes and where can you improve on that process. Then we have the as-is process and the to-be process. And then from that process of that, kita dapat kat mana dia punya red flag, ya, kat mana kita tengok the waiting time is there, kat mana kita tengok the manpower usage is high and so on, and then we minimize. And then we have called a lean process. The new process will be a new lean process. Ya. Siapa bertanya ni?
Farhana, Doktor.
Farhana Oh, tak nampak kat sini Farhana. Oh ya, Farhana.
Thank you, Doktor.
Thank you, Farhana. Alright, thank you.
Any other thoughts? Okay. All right, I think the group has done a good job, but if there will be any relevant questions to organization development processes, we can come back to it later. In the meantime, is the second group ready for the presentation?
Okay. Hello, teacher. Can you hear me?
Yes. So we are going to have Liu Yuan, Li Yaxin, Sun Jinhua, and Qin Yi. This will be a China perspective, I think. Yes, Qin Yi.
Yes, doctor. Wait a moment.
All right, take your time. China has completed lockdown, right? All right, love the flowers.
Yeah. Okay. Our group will talk about organizational life cycle and the stage of organizational development practice. I will talk. What are organizational life cycles? Simply out, organizations are social systems. They are groups of people organized around a common purpose. Their activities include similar recurring practice, for example, strategic planning, business planning, product and service development, marketing, financial management, and evaluation. Each activity usually includes formally or informally clarifying goals, taking steps toward these goals, mm, deciding if the goals are being met or not, and adjusting activities to be even more effective and efficient in reaching the goals. And the social systems can focus primarily on the inter-organization teams, each product or service, or within a certain activity. Individuals themselves are systems, needing a clear purpose and activities to continually work towards that purpose. And social systems go through common life cycles, uh, ranging for example, from startup to growth to maturity. For example, as people mature, they begin to understand more about the world and themselves. Over time, they develop a certain kind of wisdom that sees them through many of the challenges in life and work. They learn to plan and use certain amounts of discipline to carry through on these plans. They learn to manage themselves. Meanwhile, they go through infancy, childrenhood, and early teenage phases that are characterized by lots of repeat growth. People in these phases often do whatever it takes just to stay alive. For example, eating, seeking shelter, and sleeping. Many people tend to make highly reactive decisions based on whatever is going on around them at the moment. So, what is the five stage of the organizational life cycle? The we research online. The different experts will argue on how many phases we are. We divide the organizational life cycle into these five phases. There are extensions, survival, maturely, uh, renewal and decline. And this chart shows us organization life cycle, this model. And the organizations from appearance to decline in different period. So the stage one is extensive. Hormonals are the birth of entrepreneurs think about the business. A team is formed and sometimes a business plan gets written for entrepreneurs needing money to start the business. The company goes into the growth phase once the investor writes the check. For those don't need outside funds. The startup ends when you declare yourself open the business. In any case, this phase requires the development of a workable business model. And the stage two is survival. At this stage, organizations look to pursue growth, establish a framework, and develop their capabilities. This is a focus on regularly setting targets for the organizations, with the main aim being to generate sufficient revenue for survival and expansion. Some organizations enjoy adequate growth to be able to enter the next stage. Whilst others are unsuccessful in achieving this and like some
Hah?
emerging companies,
Dengar benda lah mugong je kata Ikang.
under this field without experience and insufficient funds, like the new energy field. If there is no pro technology, it is easy to fail. So the organizations need to be able to persevere in fierce competition. And the third stage is maturity. This stage unifies the organization in turn a more formal hierarchy of management. Frequent problems encountered at this stage would be those associated with red tape. Organizations look to safeguard their growth as opposed to focusing on expansion. Top and middle level management specialize in different tasks, such as planning and routine work respectively. And they have 3 points to improve efficiency in the organization's mature stage. The first one is reduce conflict between employees and employers. Truth is, people don't work for companies as much as they work for individuals. For most of us, the most important individual is one's boss. So one can lower turnover costs by improving supervisor skills. The second point is harness disconnectionary effort. Bill Smith, the CEO of Federal Express once remarked that harnessed discretionary effort was a great challenge for all organizations. By that, he meant there is a floor of performance that is close to the minimum one needs to do to prevent disciplinary actions and potential terminations. On the other hand, there is a ceiling level of performance that one is capable of when an employee is properly motivated. The difference between these two states is the value added provided by manager and supervisor. And the last point is improve operations. Unskilled supervisors rely too much on their authority and too much on the power of fear to get things done. This is not a problem when people is showing that, but it's the case of that in operational environments. So my part is over, and the next part will introduced by my team member. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I'm going to talk about stage 4 and 5. The first stage is renew. Organization experience renewing their structure of management from hierarchical to a metric style which encourages creativity and flexibility. Here is a story from Aesop Faber's Mayhap here. A horse rider took the utmost pains with his charge, and the long as the war lasted, he looked upon him as his fellow helper in all emergencies, and fed him carefully with hay and corn. But when the war was over, he only allowed him chaff to eat and made him carry heavy loads of wood, subjecting him to much slavish drudgery. And when the air treatment war was again proclaimed, however, and when the trumpet summoned him to his standard, the soldier put on his heavy coat of mail. The house fell down straightway under the weight, no longer equal to the burden, and said to his master, "You must now go to the war on foot, for you have transformed me from a house into an ass. And how can you expect that I can again turn a moment from an ass to a horse?" Through this story, we can learn a rigorous program to change and transform the organization's culture assumes. That's why it has enough transformational leaders to change the status quo. Let us look at the last stage of life cycle decline. This stage initiates to death of an organization. The decline is identified by the focus on political agenda and authority within an organization, whereby individuals start to become preoccupied with personal objectives instead of focusing on the objectives of the organization itself. This slowly destroys the functionality and feasibility of the inter-organization. And next, there are some reasons for decline. According to the pie chart, we can see that the biggest proportion is the 32%. It is too much dot. The smallest is 8%, not enough revenue. Other reasons are inadequate leadership, poor planning, failure to change, and inexperienced management. In order to facilitate everyone to better understand the life cycle, taking social systems as an example, to show you an example of a life cycle model. First is startup features includes has the compelling, exciting vision and purpose. People are motivated by exciting, charismatic leaders and so on. Next one is the priorities in growth stage. Focus is on strengthening internal systems to support growth while expanding services and markets. Leaders focus on managing change as much as on generating new ideas and so on. Next one is priorities in maturity stage include focus is on sustaining finally priority in maturity stage include focusing on sustaining momentum and renew, especially to avoid in training in bureaucracy. Focus is also on creativity and innovation, sometimes to start new ventures that start new life cycles themselves. And so on, you can take a look at PowerPoint. And I know most students want to know why they are important to understand. Because experienced leaders have learned to recognize the particular life cycle that a system is going through. These leaders understand the types of problems faced during each life cycle. That understanding gives them a sense of perspective and helps them to decide how to respond to decisions and problems in the workplace and their lives. That understanding also suggests the priorities that they need to soon address in order to evolve to the next stage. Systems that do not evolve often stagnate or decline between stages. Symptoms can be unclear priorities, unclear roles, increasing frustrations and conflict and people leaving the organization. If the understanding of the life cycle is not known, then these problems are often not resolved. The life cycle part is over. Let's welcome another group member to introduce the next part.
Hello, everyone. Just now, our partners introduced the life cycle of organization development. From development to decline, next, I continue to speak. We all know that organizational development is very important to enterprises. So, in fact, organizational development can be divided into 5 stages in enterprises practice. They are entry and contracting, seeing and discovery, diagnosis and feedback, planning, interventions and action, evolution and closure. Each stage of OD practice has a different purpose, so let me see how it works. The first is entry and contracting, understanding and entitling programs in the organization is the first step in the OD process. At this stage, we build trust, authenticity, presence, and compassion by continuously listening and providing support. This is an important part of process. Though the dialogue between the two parties, potential problems and opportunities arise, such as understanding of potential issues such as organizational growth, human satisfaction, organizational effectiveness, and human resource use, discovering customer goals and wishes, and confirming customer needs. The second is science and discovery. Well, relying heavily on our intuition, we also collect information based on the hard data. Data collection is the most important step in the OD process. Though the log questionnaire surveys, interviews, assessment tools, and focus groups to collect the data and establish relationship. Different minds depend on the nature of the problems encountered by the organization. Throughout the whole process, building trust relationships help us to understand the core of the problem in depth and grasp more accurate information. After collecting the necessary data, we will continue to analyze. Next is the diagnosis and the feedback. This stage is a micro examination of the collected information because most of the issues are usually expressed by the members of the organization in the unclear terms. So experience and judgment are crucial here. Important factor must be considered. So my partner will be next to stage. Thank you.
Okay, hello. Okay, the next step is planning interventions and action. After diagnosing the problem, the OD expert tended his attention to the planning and the implementation of the change. OD interpretation plays a role here and is considered to be action stage in the OD process. This is a gradual process and requires a lot of time to complete. An action plan is a set of plans for an organization to collaborate with their customers. It is divided into small steps with an accountability structure, including who is responsible and an agreed date for completion. Okay, next page. The implementation of the action plan can include a wide range of organizational development interventions, such as individual or group coaching, training, leadership development, team building, diversity dialogue, and conflict resolution. For example, in China's company, Alibaba's organization's development practice strategy, employees are allowed to freely discuss their own weaknesses and problems, and then provide employees with targeted training based on the problems found to improve the organization's overall capabilities. And they also proposed a comprehensive salary method to encourage employees' work performance, solve the problem of unsatisfactory unsatisfactory emotions among employees and let organization develop smoothly. So these all interventions have brought certain positive change to the organization, and this is their goal. Okay, next page. The final step is the evaluation and the closure. Assessment may be one of the important stage in the OD process. When one stage is over and another stage is coming. Assessment helps to understand whether the help has been completed correctly and shows whether further work is required before moving on to the next stage. Assessment can include a financial indicator such as bottom line impact or stakeholder satisfaction. But emotional factors that may cause dissatisfaction may sometimes arise. For example, in the process of evaluating problems, you may find some employees have made mistakes, which has led to the adverse impact of organizational development. So this time requires appropriate feedback, review the problems found. Okay, next. Feedback can be used as incentive to indicate that further action is required. This most common technique for obtaining feedback is a review meeting, which passes the assessment to the appropriate employees and teams. So in summary, the stage of organizational development is that consultants enter the organization to collect data, diagnose the organization's needs, design interventions, and evaluate progress, expand everyone's thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors, and so on. So which improves the organization's adaptability to continuous innovation and update. Okay, next page. This is the field trends. In the field planning of organizational development practice, some scholars have proposed 4 trends. The first one is a shift to platform over products. The second is a shift to digital over mechanical. The third is a shift to insights over data, and a shift to talent over employees. So the impact of these trends on the organization and effective OD interventions are also great significance to the study of organizational development, pointing out the direction to the researchers, so thus bringing new directions to the organization. Okay, our presentation finished.
Okay, good. You've also gone into some, I suppose, the intervention stages, which are similar to the one talk about OD processes. Well, anyway, organizations are just like people. They have a life cycle, right? From birth, growth, maturity, and then possibly decline. And usually organizations, after a while, when they are, I suppose, have a lot of people, employees, and then things don't work out much more, they would probably go into a state of decline. In the meantime, do you have any questions regarding organization life cycles?
Doctor? Doctor?
Yes, please.
One question in the organization life cycle. In reality, there is organization which able to make a comeback after being in the decline stage. So, what stage are they actually in, or there is actually a next stage of declining stage?
Well, yes, organization decline has also been the focus of a lot of research. And if you look at, I think I just sent you through the WhatsApp, looking at organization decline, right? I think this is Witzel, W-E-I-T-Z-E-L, and Johnson, J-O-N-S-S-O-N, model of organization decline. Looking into what happens when organizations become problematic after they have gone through periods of glory. Right? They have grown, they from the birth, they have gone through a stage of growth, and then they have gone into a stage of maturity. And usually at the stage of maturity, they will have a somewhat of a plateau type of growth. That means they begin to slow down in terms of their ability to continue to expand and their ability to do business or their ability to be much more productive, right? And as such, some organizations will go into a decline. And at a decline stage, organizations begin to have problems. Their productivity begins to go down. So sales, even if you're a business organization, sales and then customers begin to live. Much of it would reflect the relevance of what the organization is doing. And these also happens if the organization do not take into account of developing new ventures so that they remain relevant. So if you look at your WhatsApp, the one that I just sent you, right? There'll be 5 stages of decline in this Weitzel and Johnson's model. And those are characterized by one, the organization being blinded. They don't see what is happening. Did I tell you all about the example of Giant, for example? Did I tell you the story about Giant, if you recall? Anyone?
No.
No?
No.
Really? Well, Giant itself is very interesting because I think Giant would be an example of how organization decline happened. And I'm just going to quote, now this is not all of Giant. I'm talking about Giant in USJ1. Anyone familiar with Giant at USJ1? The one near Maidin? It has somewhat re-emerged as a supermarket, a hypermarket. And if you remember, supermarket and the supermarket business way back, beginning in the 80s, for example, right? Do you remember Macro? Macro was the first hypermarket in Malaysia.
Hypermarket, yes,
right? So at that time, if you were to go to Macro, you had to be a member. You had to be a registered company. That means you register with the
membership, bro.
Company, right? You have to have a card to be able to register yourself with Macro. And when you're registered at Macro, you become a member, right? Macro is a Netherlands-based hypermarket. So they brought their businesses, I think, the first Macro was at Shah Alam. And those people who registered with Macro become members, and they are afforded goods or products at discounted rate, because Macro, the concept of Macro is to buy in bulk. And when companies buy in bulk, they get discount. And that discount is passed on to the customers. And so this is how Macro works. So people, usually businesses, they would go to Macro and be able to do bulk purchases, right? There are, of course, they can buy, later on they can buy individual items. But generally, people who go to Macro will buy bulk purchases, right? And after a while, the concept of Macro began to grow, the concept of hypermarkets. The problem with Macro was that you had to become a member to be a customer, right? And once you register, you'll be issued a card, and you need to have the card to go into to do shopping at Macro. And looking at this, Giant, which started off with anyone familiar with how Giant started off? Their history started off with TMC. Where is TMC?
TMC.
Anyone familiar with TMC?
No, doctor.
No?
As I know, Giant started with a small mini market before.
Yeah, they have, but TMC was the same owners.
Oh, same owners.
Yeah. So TMC was in Lucky Garden, Bangsa.
Bangsa.
Right? So they started out with that, and then later on they had a mini market, and they opened, if I'm not mistaken, they opened their first supermarket in Taman Melawati over in Ulu Kelang. Right? So that was the supermarket, Giant then. And then later on in 1994, if I'm not mistaken, they opened the first hypermarket at USJ1. Right? At that time, it was called Giant Cash and Carry. So you actually could buy individual products, individual items there. But because it was a hypermarket, Giant was able to buy in bulk. Right? And when they bought in bulk, they got discounts. And again, those discounts actually passed on to the consumers. So people who shop at Giant were able to buy goods at a cheaper price. And this is how Giant took off. And the USJ1 was then cash and carry. So people just bought things, all things in cash, right? And later on, they had a 50 ringgit minimum purchase for credit cards. But Giant grew that way, right? It became very, very successful until the year 2002, if I'm not mistaken. This was when Mydin opened next door, right? And when Mydin, of course, had its roots in Penang, and then they moved to Kota Baru, and then the East Coast. And then they came over to Kuala Lumpur. Their first outlet, I think, was in Jalan Masjid India, right? And after Jalan Masjid India, I think they opened another outlet in Selayang. And after Selayang, they came over to USJ1, and they built their new complex at USJ1. So that hypermarket now offers competition, then, not now, then at that time they built that, they opened Mydin in USJ1. It became a competitor to Giant, right? Giant's business was thriving, and then suddenly the emergence of Mydin took away a lot of their customers, right? And as such, you could see that the business at Giant was declining, right? You began to see that one of the first indicators, I suppose this was my own experience, first-hand experience. One of the first indicators was that things at the shelf, inventory, were not available for periods of time, right? So that was one of the first indications. And then you notice that the lines, checkout lines were getting longer because the cashiers were not there. They had problems with employees. And you could see sometimes see employees even fighting at work, right? So this later on translated into even their tenants. I think they had a good, I forgot the name of the textile shop. It was quite well-known textile shop at Giant. Then you begin to notice that tenants were moving out, right? They had, I know they had good rojak and cendol and rojak, cendol and clay pot rice as one of their stores. And soon these also began to move out. So this was an indication of an organization decline. And if you look at Weisel and Johnson's model, this was indeed a stage of decline where I think Giant went through all the 5 stages. If you look at the stages, blinded. They did not realize that the emergence of Mydin was going to offer very strong competition. and I suppose they just did not notice that customers were moving. They noticed, but somehow they did not take into account, right? Blinded because they did not see Giant as a threat. And in fact, they went into a price war with Giant. So if you notice at the entrance of to USJ1, Mydin had one big billboard, and across the road, Giant had a big billboard. So both of them were offering discounted price to their items. So when Mydin, for example, offered discounted price for the detergent, then Giant would also offer something similar. So there was a price war, and price war, if you know, will not be beneficial to either of the organizations. So this was in the beginning. Giant thought they could compete that way with Mydin, but because Mydin, their outlet was bigger and their complex was much more attractive, they had better tenants, and people like to go to Mydin then. So in the first instance, Giant did not realize that they were facing a very strong competitor in Mydin. So number two, although they had a price war, they were mostly inactive. They went through a stage of inaction, right? They did not do much to compete with Giant, and as such, they began to lose their customers, right? And then faulty action, this was when they went into the price war, for example. So although they tried to match the prices of Mydin because Mydin somehow had more customers, price war was not a good option for Mydin. And as such, they began to lose more customers. And their service also began to deteriorate because they began to lose employees. And employees were having a lot of problems with each other also, right? So this was a period of faulty action. And of course, they went into deeper problems, and they went into a crisis where things were out of control, right? So when very few customers began there, in fact, people were parking at Giant because the parking at Mydin was full. So people parked at Giant, and they went over to Mydin to do their shopping. So this was again an indication of the crisis. And finally, not to say that they went into complete dissolution, but Giant closed its outlet at USJ1, and that could be seen as a dissolution deal. Of course, later on, they rebuilt a new building that is what Giant at USJ1 now is. So that would be an example of an organization decline, how organizations after a while begin to lose, I suppose, their tenacity, their ability to continue to survive. And as such, that usually goes into the decline stage, right? Not much were given attention in the beginning, but later on in the late 80s, organization decline became a field of research in itself, right? Just one more thing, you may want also to look at Bruce Tuckman's Tuckman, right? In fact, he came up with the first group development, talking about forming, storming, norming, and performing. Of course, it went up to the first four stages only, performing, which was usually at the maturity stage. And after performing, then there were new interest into organization decline. Does that answer your question?
Yes, bro.
Good. Any other thoughts? Anyone?
Prof, is it this happen also to the historical supermarket before. I think during your time, like Batu Road supermarket, Kramat supermarket.
All those smaller supermarkets. In fact, if you remember, even Batu Road supermarket, and then there were even in Malaysia also Carrefour.
Yeah.
Carrefour, the big French company, right?
Yeah.
And then there was Quantoms, spelled Printemps, Quantoms. And then if you also remember Hankyu Jaya, right? So all those are actually supermarkets that actually could not compete in the Malaysian market, and in the end they had to close down, right? So even Carrefour, and then what did Ion Big take over? They took over Carrefour, right? So these are some.
Yeah, doctor. Yeah, Aeon Big take over Carrefour. Yeah, Carrefour.
Carrefour is pronounced Carrefour.
Carrefour. Okay, sorry.
Carrefour.
But the Sogo itself, Prof, is still exists because of these changes of because of the way they survive.
I think Sogo has been quite resilient. It's interesting in the sense that Sogo has been around for quite a while. While other Japanese outlets have not been able to perform as much. I think Sogo has been able to suit to the needs of the people. Remember, we also had Metro Jaya.
Yeah, Metro Jaya. Yes, Metro Jaya.
And then I think there was Gold or something, I forgot. Yes.
And then the cold storage is coming back.
I'm not sure about cold storage, because cold storage, the one in Petaling Jaya, SS14, where Jaya supermarket, where they had Jaya shopping center.
That collapsed previously,
that one,
right?
Yeah, that one also closed recently. Possibly, I don't know. In fact, in the 70s, early 70s, we also had Weld and Fitzpatrick in Kuala Lumpur. Those were the earlier supermarkets, apart from cold storage. Cold storage has been around in Malaysia for a long time, right? They were here since the British, and then I think they've been able to survive for so long. They are now, cold storage is still around, but they are just a small operations right now. But they could be revived. And this is where I suppose OD interventions come in at the declining stage. Although I'm not saying that OD happens at all stages. In fact, to grow also, you need to plan and also have interventions, right? For example, structural interventions such as taking in new employees, that would be an intervention in itself, right? Taking in, using better technology at the workplace. So this would all probably be happening at the growth stage.
Prof, from organizational perspective, on competitors, okay, is it happen in USJ whereby Maiden is side by side with Giant? It happen also in Terengganu whereby they have the mall side by side also. Is it coincident or planned?
I think that is much more a strategy by Maiden, right? They look into possible competitors, and possibly they identify those that are weak already, and then they start to have a direct competition with these businesses. So yes, that happens also in the East Coast, and they
this is
started there, right? And they
started there.
They brought it to Kuala Lumpur.
I see. Because this is also happened in Nilai, whereby Giant, Tesco, and Ion put it in a triangle. We could say golden triangle of Nilai.
So they
and then yeah, the Ion itself is the biggest shopping mall now. I could say they claim in Asia actually in Nilai. So, but it's good for us consumers. We have a lot of choice right now.
Yeah, that's the whole idea, to give choices. And right now, if you look at the supermarket business, there are relatively newer entrants such Jaya, and also Village Grocer, Jaya Grocer and Village Grocer. They are
Jaya
quite
Grocer,
successful
yes.
because they are actually targeting the higher end of the market, right? Where they sell the more higher quality products. So you may have, for example, grain-fed beef, Wagyu beef at these outlets. And also, what's the other one? Ben, was it Ben? Which actually tailors for the much more upmarket crowd. Whereas if you look at Aeon, for example, Aeon caters for the more of the lower end. In fact, Tesco has also gone towards the lower end.
Yeah, yes, doctor. Actually, in Village Grocer and Jaya Grocer, a lot of imported products that we cannot find in Tesco and Giant. Yeah.
You want to remember what was the name of the supermarket in Ampang that actually had imported goods then, because they actually catered to the embassies around there. It's a Chinese family business. Ampang, somewhere near the British embassy, or further down.
Is it at Ampang Park, Prof?
No. It was Ampang Road. It was not a very big supermarket, but it was a family-run business, Chinese family-run business. I forgot the name. It'll come back to me later on.
Okay.
Mr. Green, can I just add?
Yes, please, Cham.
If you are looking at slide number 5, we talk about organizational life cycle model. Yeah? But there are times that we have renaissance renewal. Renaissance renewal happens in Malaysia. We introduced what we call privatization. Remember, we have a privatization at one time.
Yeah.
We see that certain organizations, certain public service entities, they are able to be able to sustain on their own. These are the government initiative through structural interventions. They reorg to become private limited companies. We have to use the Lembaga Elektrik Negara, for example, LNN. Yeah, it becomes TNB, Tenaga Nasional Berhad. Yeah, remember telecom become the big telecom. Remember Tabung Haji also being corporatized and so on. So at this stage, sometimes the government do intervene, or we are looking at lembaga hasil dalam negeri. They used to become lembaga hasil because they are able to sustain on their own. What else? They privatize Kereta Tanah Melayu, KTM. Yeah? They privatize Post Malaysia. Yeah? So this is where we look at, if you look at slide number 5, at the peak there, we inject. We call intervene or inject through structural interventions. That is through the privatization policies. Again, we look at to avoid decline. Yeah, to avoid decline, we do injection. So what happens that they become, instead of a public, they become very productive. They still serve the public, but they are also able to collect funds for the nation, in terms of tax, in terms of revenues for the nation. Yeah. So again, when we look at this particular organizational life cycle, it varies. Yeah. So if the organization is very strong, that is being supported by the government, which has very strong financial backup, which has a very strong parent companies, for example, yeah, or they have a very good strong franchise, they will be able to sustain. Yeah. The examples Dr. Khairuddin has been discussing is we are looking at when they are not even competent to be competitive. Yeah. because of the market shares declination, because of behaviors preferences, because of we deploy the wrong strategies. Yeah. So certain organization, in order to sustain to avoid decline, they also do what I call joint ventures. Yeah, they become, maybe they do joint ventures. Some is being taken over by companies through mergers and acquisitions strategies, for example. Yeah, sometimes they do consolidate in terms of, or sometimes they reposition the organization itself. So again, we have to be able to understand the nature, the purpose, and the direction of the companies. So in a public service entities, we see that because it has to be there to serve the government delivery system. But if they are GLCs, they are quite strong. Yeah? But if they are multinational companies, also they are quite strong. So the not so strong will be the family-owned businesses, especially in these COVID-19 eras. We have seen 8 5-star hotels being closed down. Yeah, simply because businesses are bad, simply because there is not much tourism. Although this year we are targeting 30 million arrivals. Yeah, we are looking at 30 millions of tourist arrival. So there are things that we are not able to control, which affect the life cycle of the organization, as I said. Yeah, so we have to look at small medium industries, self-employed, small. That's it. Yeah. So this particular model also, I believe, we have to take into consideration the nature of the organizations, yeah? Whether it is public listed, whether it is public service entities, whether they are LCs, SMEs, or they are all MNEs. Yeah. So this will be my thoughts. And as I said, Malaysia do have different economic packages in order to make sure they do not die. Yeah. So it means to say, for example, in this COVID-19, we have stimulus package. Yesterday, the government, the National Bank, talk about OPR rate. Yeah, they have reduced the OPR rate so that they are able to sustain in terms of loan repayment, for example. Yeah, they extended. They have given moratorium, for example. These are all stimulus package. The government intervenes simply because we would like to save organizations from declining. But in the event they are not able to do that, they are not able to halt the decline process. That is where, if you look at the BCG matrix, yeah, the BCG matrix talks about the dogs. What happens to the dogs when you have low profitability? We talk about low productivity. You have declining market share. We have a shift in customers' preferences. Then again, we must be able to look at that. That's where it is very important for business operators, top management organization to have what they call quarterly review, quarterly financial review, the performance of each organizations. Or you are looking at the KPIs review for public listed for public service. So they must be able to know before it comes too late for them to be able to avoid such a declining stage, for example. Yeah. So it's very important. That's why they have monthly meeting. We have reporting, so financial reporting, and so on. Yeah. So these are the things that the precautions that they have to be able to take so that it's not too late. People will be off guard. For example, they are getting they are off guard. They do not protect themselves. So businesses must be able to protect themselves. But sometimes because of the poor financial stability, you do not have enough reserves, or because of obsolete products and services, or because of obsolete technological, yeah. So you are not able to. One, I believe Dr. Kide knows that I'm very loyal to Nokia at one time. Yeah, Nokia has been my phone. Yeah, I was I was not into the smartphones. Yeah, so but then Nokia did change. But of course, it is not as fast as Samsung. Yeah, Samsung changes and diverse. Yeah, that's what I call the strategy of integration. The strategy of diversification comes in. We have to look at the downstream, the upstream. So there are many approaches, yeah, in order for us to intervene in the event that the organization performance is not in accordance to what we plan. Yeah. So again, as OD practitioners, we must have knowledge on financial performance of organizations. We must be able to look at the marketability of that particular things. you look at technological and so on. Yeah? So these are the things, yeah. But hopefully through COVID-19, I believe there are throughout the world we have seen a lot of declining of organization, and then they have to revive. Yeah, we talk about business continuity in the COVID post era. Thank you, Dr. Gideon.
Thank you, Dr. Zhang. I just recall the name of the supermarket in Ampang, Hock Chun. It is a very old supermarket, Hock Chun, but it is very well known for having imported goods. The other one, I think that was taken from what Dr. Sham said, mergers and acquisitions. I think in the case of Malaysia, if you notice, banks went through a lot of mergers, right? I think that happened at the early turn of the century, where also, I suppose, last century, end of last century, where banks begin to merge. You can see, for example, at that time, we have Bank Bumi Putra merging with Bank of Commerce, and then Bank of Commerce now, and then those two banks later on merge with, I forgot which one, but now they become CIMB. And then also Rashid Hussein Berhad, RHB, also acquired some other banks, if I'm not mistaken. Was it Proton Bank or something like that? So the whole idea was then because the banks realized that they need to have, they need to become bigger, in able to compete with the international banks. And especially when the banking sector was open for internationalization, they were expecting big banks from the US, for example, the First Bank from US, and also banks from UK and China and Japan to come in. And these banks are very big. They have they have assets, and they are very competitive. So what local banks were fearful at that time was because they would not be able to survive the competitions. And as such, they began to merge with each other. And of course, when you talk about mergers and acquisition, that comes into another, I suppose, issue, in the sense that one was because they had to find new ways of managing staff, right? A lot of duplications will happen whenever a merger or acquisition happens. And they have to somehow streamline their employees and also the jobs and the tasks at work. And the other thing was about, for example, culture. You may have a clash of two different cultures whenever mergers and acquisition happens. And this also has to be sorted out through interventions. So these are organization development interventions that are also undertaken by organizations that are going through mergers and acquisitions. And I suppose in the government, we can see the government sector also, public sector, also experience a lot of mergers or acquisitions in their own way when the last government took over. Anyone who have had that experience may be able to write about it. Okay? Any other thoughts? Things that cross your mind?
Prof, one more thing.
Yes.
It's also same to the aviation industry, right? Whereby before this we have like Augusta Westland, and then Boeing helicopters. Now when they merge some of the companies, so before this we have Eurocopter.
Yeah.
Then now they change to Boeing helicopters. So no more EC, they call it H only.
Yeah.
And then like Augusta Westland before, they are produce ada certain number and model of helicopter. Now they use the same model but change the name. Is it because of the to recline the business or just a strategies of going getting better?
Yeah, the other reason that companies acquire or merge is because of technology, right? So for example, Proton acquired Lotus. One of the reasons was because they wanted that technology for the suspension, because Lotus was known for its suspension system. And when they acquired Lotus, they got the technology instead of having to buy technology. What they do, buy the whole company, and they manage to acquire the technology. And then this also happens a lot when you talk about developing about innovations, right? And the aircraft industry was also like that. In fact, Dr. Isham also did his thesis, his study, his research on the aeronautical companies, but that was long ago, right, Isham?
It's good to share, Doctor.
Yeah.
Dr. Kidin, maybe I would like to add on what Doctor
Yes,
had mentioned before regarding the bank acquisition.
Uh-huh.
Actually, 2 years ago, I think the Hong Leong Bank is the one who bought over the Eon Bank.
Yeah, but that's why
the Hong Leong Bank bought over Eon Bank. Then after the acquisition, I noticed that some of the branches, the bank branches, have to be closed because as a cost optimization measure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, CIMB also recently underwent some restructuring in the sense that they closed quite a number of banks. And if you notice, the bank at UPM, formerly it was a bank in itself, but now it is just, what do they call it? It's just a service outlet. That's the name that they call it.
There's no more branch, is it?
There's no more branch. It is just, they have a name for it, I forgot. In fact, the main branch
Kiosk.
is the one in Sri Kembangan.
Kiosk only.
Not kiosk, it was bigger than kiosk. They had a name for it, I forgot. So these are common restructuring that happens in order to address the life cycle of organizations. Sometimes when organizations get too big, right, they begin to, they do some consolidation. They begin to shed businesses that they are not familiar, right? They begin to do away or sell off industries, or they sell off divisions that they are not good at. They will discover that they have the lack of competence in certain areas, and those areas may not be workable for them, may not be beneficial for them. And as such, they need to shed it by selling it off, or maybe even closing it, right? If you notice in the 80s, a lot of companies began to become bigger by acquiring, right? American companies, for example, like Mills, what was the name? They bought Kellogg, they bought all the cornflake business, cheese businesses, and beverage businesses. And then after a while, they begin to discover that, hey, I don't have enough competence in this business, and they begin to share it out. In Malaysia, if you look, for example, Lions Group, right? If you're familiar with Lions Group, for example, Lions Group, they have departmental stores. What's the name? Pakson, right? It's under Lions. And then they have a tire business, Silverstone. And then they have computer businesses, Lenovo, right? But if you look at Lions Group, they started off with just the steel mill, right? Steel business, the mills. And later on, the mills also did not do well, so they begin to reorganize their businesses. So Lions Group would be an interesting study for how organizations in Malaysia in particular go through the organization life cycle. Anyone else? So if you look at organization life cycles, this is also closely tied to the OD development process. And I suppose that's why Facebook also went into the OD process towards the end. Okay, continue. Sorry, Lokman, you had a question just now.
Prof, I would like to have Dr. Hisham view on DRB Highcom, whereby it just started from the automotive, it's not mistaken. Then it developed very fast during, I think, during 2000 plus, whereby it's the late Tan Sri Yahya Ahmad is very, very, what we call, very outstanding businessman at that time. And then now they also have a lot of group of company under the RB Highcom plus Post Malaysia itself, whereby Post Malaysia actually is some sort like a social responsibilities we call agencies. And then if like Prof. Gideon said just now, even though before we have a bank branches in UPM, now we don't have, but Post Malaysia still can resilient and exist, make their existence in all the university right now because of maybe the marketable, the social responsibility, or because it only the provider, the best provider.
Thank you, Mr. Loman. I think under the RB, under Tan Sri Jamil, they have expanded a lot. Not only they have under their wings Post Malaysia, I think they have also the Highcom universities, yeah, the one in Pekan. They have also Bank Islam, I think, Bank Islam under them, yeah. So if you are looking at the question is whether it is a CSR, but you see, when we had the privatization of Malaysia, they were not doing very well at one point. Yeah, they were not doing well because the culture is still the same, the people is still the same. They were not very competitive enough in terms of delivery. So, but then they expanded in terms of the services. Then they become one-stop center, one-stop for payments of bills. They look at express counters, you know, for express post laju dan sebagainya, ya. So I think when they had the whole set of people, the people has been transformed, and the direction by the DRB is very clear. I believe nowadays with upgrades, yeah, you look at Post Malaysia nowadays in terms of the layout of the counters, in terms of the technology of the counters, in terms of the presentation and the competence of the people itself. They are not only providing in terms of CSR. They are actually, in terms of the postal services, they are also as competitive as other logistic providers. Yeah, and I believe that is where the vision is under Post Malaysia. I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, it is under Datuk Shukri. I'm not mistaken. The CEO of Post Malaysia. Yeah, okay. Even they have kapal terbang. They have their own jet. Yeah, in order for transport. They have their own jet. Post lajunya jet kan. So I believe they apart from being play the role of CSR in terms of postal services, they are also one of the major players in terms of forwarding. I believe, yeah, they are able to, and I believe the whole structural change begins with the new directions of the former. Of course, Tan Sri Yahya took over, Tan Sri Jamil took over. Now they have a different CEO and COO, things like that. Yeah. So I believe when the management, that's where I believe one of the things that makes organization strong is the leadership of the organizations. The organization and the vision of the organizations, the transformation initiative that they have embarked, you know, they understand the market very simply because, again, if it's a privatization initiative, you look at, of course, they are not business-minded. These people are not business-minded. But when we blend people who are, they are very good with services, but they also have to have that mindset of being in the business itself. Yeah, I believe they have increased in terms of their competence inventory, and they have changed the whole philosophy, and they have moved better. Yeah, this is just my experience. Simply, over the years, I've been one of the judges for the RB interventions seminars, seminar or conventions. Yeah, they have a lot, and they embark in a lot of initiatives. Yeah, they talk about green belt, they talk about black belt, they talk about ICC, they talk about QCD. They have many OD interventions, and they make sure everybody has their own qualification. They certify a lot of, and they have executive programs for the managers and so on. Yeah? So they have gone through the whole cycles of the OD business when they transform DRB HiCom into a more competitive outfit in Malaysia. Yeah, right. Thank you, Chairman. That is my view lah. Yeah.
I think DRB HiCom started off with the automobile business, and then they later on, they also went into motorcycles, cars and motorcycles. I think they have a stake in Suzuki, they have stake in Yamaha, and they also own, I think, Bank Muamalat, right, Isham? Bank Muamalat.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, Bank Muamalat, true, yeah.
And then,
so Dato' Rizal is there.
Yeah, recently I think they even got into property development, Primary Cove. So they are expanding, and also I suppose this would be a good observation into how organizations go. In the end, I think my own view is that they are getting, they are spreading themselves probably a bit too much, and would probably have to consolidate later on, especially in looking into now when we have the issue of COVID-19. So they'll be interesting.
Alam Flora is also under their wing, yeah? Alam Flora.
Alam
Risk
Flora,
management.
yeah. Alam Flora.
Right, yeah. They, Proton produces cars, but DRB on last time, they were the one who do marketing of the cars, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
they went into
Eon. Is it Eon?
Eon.
Yeah, Eon.
There's a marketing arm for DRB, for the Proton cars at one time. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, gentlemen. All
Okay,
right.
thank you, Dr. Syam.
Thank you very much.
Maybe,
Are we done for today?
Maybe I could add on
Yes,
something to share. Okay. For example, AirAsia company, maybe most people will think that it is an airline company, and then we can see that airline company is heavily hit by this COVID-19. Actually, I would like to share that actually AirAsia also they venture into the business of financial, because as we see they have this e-wallet payment called Big Pay. So maybe this could be their strategy to assist them to get some income to cover the loss from the airline industry. So this is one of my examples that I could share with with all. Thank you.
They have to somehow, one way or another, one of the ways that companies seek to survive is to diversify so that they don't depend too much on just one business. So diversification provides some hedging, or at least some insurance on what they do, just in case one side of the industry suddenly goes through, like for example, the airline industry now is in heavy losses because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Good.
Prof. Kidin,
Yes,
another one regarding audit intervention strategies. How you can explain to us the development of KPJ itself?
KPJ, very interesting.
KPJ is good example, I think.
It is. KPJ has grown tremendously. I think it's starting out with, I don't know much about the business in Johor. In fact, they don't have, they started out, I think, with Tawakal or something like that, right? Then Tawakal.
I think the changes become, really what we call exposed during Tan Sri Muhammad Ali Hashim, right?
Yeah, they grew then. They started to, because they are actually under Jacob in that sense, right?
Yeah,
it was actually Jacob that actually grew, and DSH being one of the arms of Jacob. Of course, the other was this Kentucky Fried Chicken and what else? There were several big companies under Jacob. But if you look at DSH in particular, there's the Tawakal and then all the Damansara, also DSH, actually Damansara Specialist Hospital. And then they began to look at all the other specialist hospitals around the country. So they began to open hospital specialist centers in towns because they discovered that actually there was a need for private medical treatment. So in a way, they have been successful at that. And they initially
Or
started
maybe
out as a competitors to Pantai Hospital. Of course, Pantai Hospital has been sold off to Temasek.
or is it because one of the possible reason is there are more and more sick people nowadays?
Well, people needing more medical treatment, I suppose, and people who can afford treatment. So that's another part of it, because even if there are a lot of sick people, but if they cannot afford private medical care, then I don't think they will be able to survive. Because people just, well, last time people started off because they wanted to have better, I suppose, treatment or care, the attention that they did not get at government hospitals. And then later on, because of the growth of the demand for medical services, people had to wait a long time at government hospitals. But nowadays, I suppose you need also to wait quite long at private hospitals. Yes, that's another area of interesting study.
I think it is also related because we have a good insurance cover. Is it like that, Prof?
In a way, well, because of the insurance business, but it costs quite a bit. Not many people from B40, for example, could afford insurance because they have to depend on the insurance from the company insurance. But private insurance, that's still quite limited to probably M40 and also of course T20s.
Oh, okay, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
Good. Next week we are going. I don't know. I'm not sure about the plan. Next week is actually the break, so-called break, until the Hari Raya, if I'm. But do you want to have classes next week? There's still we still have to do organization culture. We can have a short class next week if you want.
Yeah, I think it's good to have you and Dr. Hisham against Prof.
Yeah. I also invited Dr. Mazrina, but she couldn't make it because she's in a meeting right now.
I see.
She will be joining later, but never mind. Since it's quite easy to come on and off on Zoom, so I can invite people once in a while, this and that, to join us. I appreciate Dr. Hisham making time for our class. It's a valuable asset. Thank you, Hisham. So we'll discuss about next week. We'll probably have a short class next week on organization culture, if that's okay. All right. I don't think we have a next class today is the 6th, right? Oh, next class it'll be, I don't know whether MCEO will be extended or not. What do you think? Most likely it will not be extended. From the health perspective,
it will be extended.
It will be?
The PKPB will continue until Hari Raya.
Yeah, I need to get back to work.
PKPB.
I need to get back to work so that anyway, we'll discuss on our what we need. But for the meantime, be prepared. Be prepared for your presentation on organization culture. Be Nur Asila, Nur Shahana, Mutiara Putri, and also Shamila, right? Shamila B. So if you can prepare a presentation for next week, it'll be good. All right? Okay, if there's nothing else, anyone? Hans, do you want to speak? Unmute you.
It's okay, Prof. I just want to ask, is it possible organization not follow the circle?
Well, the not following means they could somehow be terminated at an early stage. They birth, and before they grow, they already adjourn, right? So yes, there is possibility, but regardless, some organizations grow at different rates. Some are fast, some are slow. But in general, we will notice the general patterns of birth, growth, maturity, and plateauing, right? The difference is probably in the rate of growth and also when they reach maturity and the plateau, and also when they begin to decline. Some decline right away. They open shop and about 1 month they close. That also is also a possibility. Okay? Everyone,
Okay, thank you, Prof.
done? Thank you very much. It has been, as usual, very interesting. I'm getting used to using the Zoom, so maybe this is the new normal.
Yeah.
Yes? It's easier
Thank
to
you very much for the sharing, Prof.
Yeah, the only thing that I don't get from here is that interaction, that I suppose the eye contact and the feedback, immediate feedback from people. But we'll get used to it. I think we'll get better at this as we go along. All right. Till then, thank you again. I'll see you all next week. And thank you, Dr. Hisham, for joining us. Bye.
Bye. Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Dr. Kevin and Dr. Hisham for the sharing. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Hisham. Bye.
Selamat berbuka.
Yes, you too. Take care.
Awal lagi nak
Stay-
buka.
Stay healthy. I'll be around if anyone has any personal questions that you may want me to attend to. If there's nothing else, I'll be ending the meeting soon. Okay, Nasrin and Arif, I'm signing off. Bye.